Hiya. The purpose of this video is to walk you through the slice command. So let's start with just doing some basics. Something that's really important to remember about slice is that despite it being a three-dimensional command in that it will slice a three-dimensional solid, it wants to be a two-dimensional command. What I mean by that is that it will always, by default, slice in the XY plane. So when I go here and I tell it that I want to slice, if I put that slicing plane, if I define that splicing plane by clicking to 2 points, that slice is always going to be perpendicular to the XY axis. So in this situation, you can see here that I've got the X here, the Y here, which means like the underside or the top of this three-dimensional shape is in the XY plane. So by putting my slicing plane perpendicular to that, it should work. However, like you'll notice that I use the O-snap on this corner. If I click on the one beneath it, those are 2 points on the same point. Like those are 2 different values of Z, not 2 different values of XY, of X or Y. So if I click here, it's going to say, you can't do that. You have to have distinct XY coordinates. This is an invalid second point. But if I go here, I click that, and I'm going to hit spacebar just to keep both. You'll notice that it has sliced into 2 different pieces. So this is the frustration with slice, because it doesn't ever want to behave in the way that you want it to. You'll notice that I do have dynamic UCS turned on, which means that I would hope that maybe it would move my UCS around to make that tool work properly. It does not, friends. It does not. And this is one of the reasons that I kind of stopped using dynamic UCS, because I became faster using other methods. But let's see what else Slice Tool has to offer us. So to do that, let's look at the options. So I've hit spacebar to say this is the object I want to slice. There is surface, z-axis, view, 3 points, and then I've got these X, Y, Z's. So these X, Y, Z's are to create a cut parallel to a plane. So let's say that I want to do that same cut that I did before, except I want to use my XYZ to do that. I can do that by clicking here on my XZ, and now it's mad at me. There we go. And now point on either side. There we go. It did the thing that I wanted it to do. But you can see that maybe that's challenging if you want to slice something on an angle or anything else. So oftentimes the thing that I will try, if I don't want to deal with moving my UCS, is I'll try using the 3-point command. So I'm going to change to 3 points, 3, spacebar. So now let's try to cut a diagonal here. I want to cut a line from here to here, in the XZ plane. So that, yeah. So I'm going to click here, I'm going to click here, and then I'm going to define the 3rd point by clicking there, hitting spacebar, and that did what I wanted it to. Let's go back and do that again. So I'm going to slice this object. I'm going to start my 3-point command, or 3-point version of this command. So what you have to think about where the slicing plane is, like what points. If you imagine that this is a knife, for example, you're defining 3 points that knife is going to pass through when it makes this cut. So you're basically defining the line that it's going to follow and then where it's going to go into the depth, if that makes any sense. So I'm going to slice there. That's defining it on the face of this object and then telling it which direction is depth. And there's my 3rd one. I'm going to hit spacebar to accept. There we go. This works pretty well the vast majority of the time, but it can be a little bit fussy sometimes, and it does take a little bit of a time to just understand exactly what the heck you're telling it. And it's always a little bit challenging if you don't have O-snaps in a convenient location. So for example, if I want to slice do a vertical slice here along this edge. And I start this here, here. Oh, I forgot to start 3 points. Slice, 3. Here, here. And I'm going to ignore that I have that point there. Doing this into the third dimension might be a little challenging. That might make it. Let's see if that worked. Yeah, that worked. Great. So a lot of people will default to that. Let me show you something else. And that is that you don't always have to stay in this UCS. In fact, the easiest way to change out of this UCS is to come up here and click on the view that you want to use. So right now I'm technically in top view because the top of this part is in the XY plane. And you can see that here based on this view cube, although that starts to become inaccurate pretty quickly in just a second. But let's say that I want to do this slice on this angle in the front. So here we are, my UCS has changed. I'm now in the XY plane. Now the XY plane is aligned with the front, like the global front of my part. And you will notice that when this is in front view, when this says front, my view cube says top. And people tend to find that confusing. I also found that confusing for a while. And now I have just gotten to the point where I basically ignore my view cube and pay attention to my UCS. But anyway, so now that we're in this orientation, I can slice in whatever orientation I want. And it's always going to be, by default, in the XY plane. This is by far the method that I use the most because I like to be able to know exactly where that line is going to go and not have to like guess or whatever. So much so that I just have hotkeys programmed to my XY, or to change the view. So I have a hotkey programmed to the top. There's one programmed to the front and then one programmed to either side. And I choose that method mostly because a lot of times I'm dealing with things where it isn't super easy or obvious. Like a lot of times I'm building things that are larger than this and have more components than this. And I just want, like, if I'm working on the face of this, like let's say that I'm doing a flat. Oh, look at that. Here's a flat. So let's say that I'm putting in the toggles for this flat. Like I don't want to have to keep dealing with the fact that it wants to be in top view. Like here, this is my top view. This is the way I want to slice. Like that's kind of annoying. So I'm just going to move this face around so that now the axis that I'm working in is the one where I'm going to see the most information that's useful to me as I build this unit. So let's go ahead, add some toggles. Got 2 foot on center, but I have these 3 that want to get sliced. So I'm going to start my slice command. Notice that I'm in my XY here. I'm going to select all 3 of those things, spacebar to accept, and I can slice across them or I can slice down, doesn't really matter. I'm defining a plane. I'm going to click there, select point on desired side. So because I'm zoomed out enough and I can easily access an O snap, I'm going to click on the side I want to keep, and those other 2 sides have gone away. So to recap, really Slice Tool is all about learning how to manipulate your UCS and then understanding the difference between your slicing plane and the plane that you're looking at. So reminder, the UCS is defining your XY, and if you're just slicing and you use the default, which is a 2-point method, then you are defining the depth, really, like the location, and then which place you're going to slice through. The XY defines your slice will be perpendicular to the XY plane, and then you're defining where on the XY plane you're wanting to slice. So again, that looks like this. Oh, that's not going to slice anything. Let's say that I want to lop the back end off of this thing. We've sliced perpendicular to the XY plane there. Oh, let me show you something else that's kind of frustrating. So you want to make sure that you're using something to help you snap, right? So I tend to use polar tracking. Let's say that we want to slice a corner off of that. That's like 9 inches or whatever. By the way, this is from a packet of practice parts that somebody made to practice Inventor, and I use it to practice AutoCAD because it's kind of fun. So let's say that we want to chamfer these corners. There's absolutely a chamfer edge command, and I would absolutely tell you to use it, except that I'm trying to teach you slice right now. So the first thing is that if I want to slice this some distance and then at a 45-degree angle, the easiest way for me to figure that out is to literally give myself a guideline and say the distance, and then just like stick an edge out somewhere that we don't care about. And the reason that I give it this long tail is so that I can easily delete it in a hot second when I need to. We're going to chamfer both of these corners, so I'm going to mirror my guide across that axis, and then I'm going to start my slice command, go there to the guide, and then let the ortho tracking snap me at 45 degrees. Snap, pick a point on the side that I want to keep. Great. Do it again. Use that O snap in the corner. Use my ortho tracking to snap. This time I'll say keep both, and then just delete this one. Now that I'm done with the slice, I can get rid of those guides and move on to the next thing. If you have further questions, please do ask. And happy slicing.